All right, good morning, everybody. Well, looks like we have a pretty good chunk of the folks who registered here this morning, so we'll get started here. This is Cody Cochran, Business Development with MBSI Wave. First and foremost, just want to say thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning or afternoon, depending where you're at in the country. So MBSI Wave, we're proud to present this webinar focused on finding the right tower for your network. Which obviously can be a challenge. And we're here at MBSI Wave, we're constantly working alongside with our friends at Trylon to try to make the tower selection, design, and procurement process easier for you. We want to make things as painless as possible so you can roll out those networks, whichever vertical and industry you're working in. Y'all just have to excuse my voice. I'm just battling a little bit of a cold here. Just before we get going here, just a few housekeeping things. So the webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our social media outlets shortly after we complete here today. So if you have to jump off or you get distracted by the phone or emails coming in, feel free to check out our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. And we will have postings or links to get to the video of the recording here today. If you have any questions or comments for the content today, please feel free to drop them in the chat window as we move forward in the webinar. Typically, we do try to address them all at the end just to keep the flow moving. So please do feel free to pop in the questions at any time. You should see a chat window over on the right-hand side. If not, there should be a button on the bottom of the Zoom app you're using to open that up. So just another thing, so please pay attention to the content, stay engaged. Following up the content from Steve Little, we're actually going to be asking a question, something that he's going to be covering during the webinar. And the first person to answer it correctly will win a $100 Amazon gift card, which we will get sent out shortly after the webinar is complete. So, and we'll make sure everybody has time to get that chat window open. If everybody, and I think Nicole's already got this covered, but if you could just keep your mics muted during the presentation, that would certainly be appreciated. So now. So again, MBSI Wave, we do currently have stock of all of Trylon's solutions, and we're more than happy to work alongside you and Trylon on any tower opportunities you may have currently or coming up in the future as we kind of roll into spring, hopefully sooner than later, to get some activity going. Presenting today on behalf of Trylon is Steve Little. Steve is the product manager over at Trylon. He's been there for a number of years, based out in Elmira, Ontario. So I'm going to pass on the baton here and let Steve get started.
Unmute now. Okay, I believe I'm unmuted. I guess, Nicole, if you could give me, let me know if I'm good, maybe in the chat box. Okay, perfect. So thank you everybody for coming to this webinar. Unfortunately, like Cody, am experiencing a bit of a cough and a cold, and it's not great for me, but I will hopefully keep this moving through and hopefully not cough too much so everyone can feel like I'm have some clarity as to what I'm talking about. So again, thank you for coming. As Cody introduced, I'm Steve Little. I'm the product manager for Trylon. So the general idea of this is how to find the right tower fit for your network. And I have a quick outline here as just of what we're gonna go through. So a little short introduction to Trylon for those who might not know us. Then I'm gonna go over tower types, considerations, so that's on your end. Trylon's options, and then how to get that recommendation. And then I'll have a quick summary at the end. So for those who haven't heard of Trylon before, or have only kind of heard of us loosely, we are a major telecom and wireless infrastructure supplier to Canada. We are also a large and engineering consultant in Canada, the US, the UK, and the rest of Europe, so places like Romania. And then also, we have a construction footprint across Canada, the US, the Caribbean and Latin America region, and as well as Europe. So we're a company that has a long history. We've been in business 85 years. We have roughly 500 employees globally. Our headquarters is in Elmira, Ontario, but we also have a Brampton office, which shows where our engineering services is. We also have Calgary, Langley, and Truro offices that are for construction services in Canada, an Irving, Texas office, which is our construction and engineering work in the US, and the Bucharest office, which handles a lot of our European business. So for tower types, at the base of it, there are three main types. There's self-support, there's guide, and there's monopoles. Within that, there's a couple different types. If you have monopoles, you get flag poles and tri-poles. If you have guide towers, they can be all weld, or they can be KDSS or KDS guides. And then with self-supports, there are various sizes and heights. So with that, self-support, and that's, I think, the main market for WISPs and for municipalities, for small, utility networks. You're looking at a self-support in the West. Typically, it might be an all-weld, so this means it's a fully welded construction. In the rest of the country, it'll probably be a knockdown. So for Trylon, we use angle steel. We have a max height of 310 feet. Again, that's, if you're at a carrier level, if you're really heavy loading, but we have towers as short as 10 feet and 20 feet tall. So, it's a huge range. It's very modular. A lot of custom, the ability to customize the tower. Next would be guides. So as I mentioned before, there's knockdown and there's also all welds. And there's also, this can go up to a height of, let's say, 800 feet, something like quite extreme, but it is possible. Now, of course, there's requirements for land, but it's a different solution. And then lastly, it's mostly focused on the carrier level, is monopoles. So our style are fully welded, a max height typically around 200 feet, but you can get, and often with, I think, a lot of the small cell deployments, local networks, you're looking at small poles, street lamps, such like that can also be used. So we kind of cover the full gamut when it comes to poles. So what are the considerations when you're in, of course, everyone's unique. Everyone has, different needs. So this is kind of a broad picture, but I think it kind of captures the main focus points. So first up is antenna loading. Then you have your municipal and federal regulations and requirements. Next is your site footprint, so how much space you have to work with, and then labor costs, what material costs, etc. So for antenna loading, I cannot stress this enough. When it comes to designing a tower, the surface area of the antennas of your radios, that's what will dictate, the tower results. So you have to imagine, if you put your finger up, and if you, like in the air, and you take your other finger and imagine that's a wind, and you push on it, it simulates the same thing that a tower goes through, where the wind is hitting any type of surface area and pushing on the tower. So, from your end, that's always the main consideration. Obviously, you're looking at what are you looking to do? So if you're looking to put up some point-to-points, if you're putting up a small omni network, various things, that is the main consideration from what your network is to what the tower you need. That extends from the elevation above ground and the quantities that you're looking to use. for the municipal and federal requirements, when you're there, realistically at the base of it, do you need PE sealed drawings or not? And the reason for this is we have our oldest line of tower, the Titan series. It's fantastic for what it is. It's lightweight. It's 8-foot sections. I'll kind of cover it, but it is not compliant with current standards. So if you're looking to use that, but you're going to, down the line, you're going to need PE sealed drawings, already that kind of cuts you off, and you need to look in a different direction. Additional concerns or thoughts are what lighting you might need, depending on where you're putting the tower, and depending on what the foundation is. That flows into the site footprint. How much space do you have? If you have a lot of space, if you have a lot of, let's say you're on the prairies, and people might need their farm fields, but you kind of have a lot of space to work with. And so you could use a large guide tower. It's got a large footprint, but it's, unit cost of a tower can be quite cheap. And now it's got different labor costs, so those are a trade-off. But, if you have a medium-sized site footprint, then you're probably looking at a self-support tower. And if you're in an urban center and you have a small space, you're looking at a monopole, a micropole, what have you. As an example, Trylon has what we call our rapid deployment pole system, and that actually fits a full tower up to, I believe it is 14.9 feet, 14.9 meters, so 50 feet, within the space of a parking stall in a parking lot. So if you know that, now there's a cost associated with that, but if you're very limited in where you can get your network, and you have these small spaces to work with, these are different considerations. And then of course, lastly, labor and material costs. So as we find out west, higher costs in terms of labor means less time. You need less time on site to make the whole project worthwhile. So if you're in a spot where labor is going to drive your tower, you're probably going to look at something where the tower is already pre-constructed in a way, so that you minimize how much time you're on site. So with those considerations, here are the 5 Trylon options. Now I'll discuss all of them kind of with a little bit more depth, but just as the overview, there's the Titan, which is our oldest tower. It's a self-support. It's 8-foot sections angle. We have the Super Titan KD is another self-support. The Super Titan Weld, which is our newest tower line, or most recently introduced tower line. The difference between it and the KD is it's an all welded sections 10 feet versus knockdown sections of 10 feet. The Super Titan Max, this is a 19-foot section tower that goes up to 251 feet. So it is a subcarrier tower, but if you're looking to put a decent amount of loading in a windy spot up on a hill somewhere, and you need to get above the tree line, that is going to be the tower you might be looking at. And then lastly is our SCG series, which we would like to think as kind of the Swiss Army knife. It can be guide up to 350 feet. It can be a self-support up to 40 feet, roughly, depending on where you're putting it and what you're putting on it. So if you're running a SCADA network where it's got a small little monitoring panel antenna or a small little Omni, and it's not very windy, you could utilize the SCG-SS. And then lastly, it can also be a bracketed tower. So this can be right up against a building, connected to a building. So, different styles. So the Titan, so again, as our oldest tower, it's people here might, even on this phone call, or I should say on this webinar, might remember this as the Trylon's AVC tower, which is what it was called in the 80s and early 90s. So it's up to 96 feet tall with 8 feet sections. In the way the sections are built is it actually nest every other section. So as an example, a section 1, well, section 2, which is the smallest, fits inside a section 4, which is slightly larger, and fits inside a section 6. So we can get a full 96-foot tower on an 8-foot skid, which is quite an accomplishment. So if you need to get a tower that doesn't need to have a PE seal. It's looking for a line of sight, a rural customer, and it's just, kind of a very effective solution. The Titan might be what you're looking at or looking for. The Super Titan KD, this, is a step up. We're moving to 190 feet as a self-support, increased area for coverage and line of sight, increased capacity, so you can add more antennas, you can hit more customers. You can kind of run it as a node for your network. The modular design allows for the sections to kind of create a lot of variability in terms of capacity, in terms of how the tower is built and delivered. So certain sections can actually be shipped as assembled. So in a similar way to the Titan or the Super Titan Weld, you can actually receive the sections 1 through 12 assembled, pull them apart, stack them together, and within a very short time, you have a fully stacked knockdown tower. And again, this is going to be CSA S3713 and S3718 compliant. So it simplifies, the permitting process in terms of getting the tower, the foundation all signed off on. Next up, again, our newest tower, the Super Titan Weld. So this doesn't go to the same height as the, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. That's, for a long time, for 5 years now, we held it at 150 feet. But in the last year, we've designed heavier duty sections that actually allow this tower to go up to 200 plus feet. The sections quite heavy duty, so we've seen them get utilized for fairly significant loading. But again, due to the construction, which includes integral climbing ladder and transmission ladder, it makes it for quite efficient in terms of stacking a tower of that height. It uses at some points 4 bolts per leg and at some points 3 bolts per leg. So you could end up connecting 20 feet with 9 bolts or 12 bolts, which, if you're out in, a spot with high labor, that is a great savings for you. And again, CSA S3713 and 18 compliant. So now we're on to the Super Titan Max. So as I mentioned before, it's our tallest tower. It's up to 251 feet tall with the maximum loading capacity. So if you're, again, a very, some large microwave backhauls, let's say, with 2 levels of panel loading, and you're in a windy spot, let's say you're out in Lethbridge, Alberta, somewhere where it's quite windy, you might be looking at the Super Titan Max as a solution to your heavy loading as a node for your network that's beaming off to a bunch of communities, point to points, point to multi-points, what have you. The modular design, similar to the rest of our line, allows for us to kind of create multiple options at different heights. And of course, as they're 19 feet sections, if sure were we to ship this in a container, what have you, and we have used this to ship, let's say, up to the north, northern Ontario, Nunavut, Iqaluit. So you end up seeing the use of containers, and this tower fits perfectly within that. And then this one's special because we actually, for the cost and for the value, we include PE stamp drawings within the purchase price of the Super Titan Max. And lastly, our STG. Again, as I kind of covered right at the beginning, it's an extremely versatile option that's CSA compliant with the ability to be a self-support up to 50 feet, bracketed. It kind of depends on the bracket heights, but let's say 120 feet or so, and then a guide tower up to 350 feet. All members are solid round, so similar to the Super Titan Weld, you don't have to worry about the chance of internal corrosion. So there are competitors that produce similar towers that use hollow legs. And obviously here in Canada, that can be quite problematic because you're looking at a situation where you get high amounts of humidity and moisture buildup in the air, specifically in winter. And if that gets inside the leg in any way, due to poor galvanizing, poor connections, what have you, you could have a scenario where your tower rusts out from the inside out and you don't know until it collapses. So with the STG, that can't happen. It's a solid round, 7/8 leg, 1/2 inch diagonals and horizontals, all one continuous piece. So you don't have to worry about any type of corrosion. The connection is quite easy. It's 3 bolts to connect 10 feet, so, well, 20 feet. So again, in terms of time, in the field, it's a fantastic solution. And I should mention, all of our towers come with the foundation when you order the kit. So if you're getting a Titan through the STG, Super Titan Max, they all include a standard foundation. And of course, that's a concrete foundation, but we have various solutions for piles, for rock, for caissons, what have you, for grillage foundations, whatever you kind of need, whatever you is going to be the result of the conditions of your site, we have the ability to create a solution. And I see a question quickly that, just so I answer it, the STG is 18 inches in face width. So, when you're climbing, it's got enough of a width there to, comply with CSA in terms of a proper climbing ladder. So you can climb any face of the STG. You can attach one of our safety systems, so either the Cougar rail or the Cougar cable system, and be able to climb it with ease. So you're thinking, okay, I know what my antennas are. I know where it's going. I know what elevation they need to be at. How do I get this recommendation? So first step, contact MBSI Wave. You're going to, with whatever your local sales, rep is, whoever it is, from all of my encounters with MBSI Wave, everyone is a salesperson. Everyone is ready to help you as a customer, as a client, in any way. So, contact anyone at MBSI Wave and they'll start the process. So once you do that, you're going to provide them with the antenna and radio loading, so models and elevations, that location, so where you're putting this up. If you need future capacity, we do like to know that. We do like to run our towers to about 90% capacity, just to give you that extra space. Should you, right at that last, the 11th hour, well, I should say the 11th hour and 58th minute, because the tower is typically the 11th hour. Should you add, an additional panel, ideally we've kind of left that space. But if you have a thought that, hey, maybe I'm going to double this in the future, let them know so that we can account for that and make sure that, 4 years down the road, 8 years down the road, whatever it is, you're covered. And lastly, if you have model preference, if you're in Alberta, Saskatchewan, where have you, or you know what, I shouldn't say that. If you're wherever you are and you have from this presentation gone, I really like the SDG series. I'd really like the Super Titan series, or the whatever it is, just let them know, and that'll help guide us in terms of putting together a tower recommendation. Because if we can make it quick for you to say, hey, I'm looking for a 88-foot Titan. I don't need TN stamped drawings. It's a little point-to-point out in the bush. We run that. We're like, hey, yep, checks out. The T300 is what you need. Then that makes it very quick for everybody. So they send that to us, Trylon, and we'll run a free analysis for you. Our typical turnaround time on that is 24 to 48 hours. We like to be very on top of that. Obviously, there are times when it can be quite busy for us. So, please understand if it's a little delayed, it's not intentional. We are working on it, but very often, and I would say within 90% of the time, if you don't get it back within 24 hours, it'll be there the next day. So would be the main way. However, the alternate would be to use MBSI Wave questionnaire web form. They've set this up, and I think it's quite beautiful. So you go to mbsiwave.com. They have right on their banner, the header, this project tools. And now Trylon's Tower Questionnaire is not the only web tool or project tool, but I do think it might be the most important. I might be biased. But as you can see in this layout, it's so simple. Went mbsiwave.com, go to project tools. When you get to the questionnaire, there's a little tiny download symbol, and of course that's the red arrows there marking that. You download that, it pulls up the questionnaire, you fill it out, you go right to the bottom, it says submit questionnaire. It'll pull up in your emails, both to sales, I'll get to it later, sales@mbsiwave.com, and Trylon stock products email, stockproducts@trylon.com. It'll send that to both of us. So there's no delay. You fill that out, let's say for some reason you don't have time, you don't want to deal with the bugaboo of, reaching this one and this person, that person. You just say, I got this, I got to get this analysis in. If you go online and submit this, we receive it right away. So again, another way that MBSI Wave is trying to provide you with value, and also we're trying to provide you with value, because we don't want you to feel any delay in getting your tower needs looked after. So as a summary, what you need, well, what we need is to have the what and the where 85% front. I'm putting up these antennas, these microwaves, this, that, and your brother up on this tower that's going to be at 100 feet in Labrador on the coastline. Do you need P stamp drawings? Well, if you're putting your brother up on the area, you might not. But what impact, so from there, what impact will labor have? Can you get away with knockdown or all weld? Or, let's say if you're getting it into an awkward spot, you might need to have a knockdown tower to deal with the actual movement of material. Do you have, your height and your footprint available? So, you're going to have to put it on rock, and there's about a 20-foot space for you to work at. So, maybe you have 10 feet at the base of the tower, and, again, at 120 feet, what can we do? And then again, the whole idea of future capacity. In 5 years, 10 years, what might this look like? What might your network look like? How much expansion do you think you might get out of that node, out of that point to point in 5 years? So I'll leave it at that. I believe now we'll do the questions. So if you need extra clarity, if you have any concerns, and of course, right on there is our contact. So again, as I said, stockproducts@trylon.com, and the MBSI Wave at sales@mbsiwave.com. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Steve. Very, very informative. So we'll just give everybody a minute if anybody has any questions. We do just have one left outstanding here for you, Steve. And if anybody else has one, please do chalk it into the chat there. What is the typical cost of drawings for you guys' tower lines? Does it depend on the different tower type? That could be a tricky one to answer, but just wanted to see if you have an answer for that, or we could take that one offline if need be.
Yeah, so the typical cost is roughly, and it'll be uniform amongst the towers, less the Titan. Again, just to clarify that, less the Titan, of about $800. And this comes with the tower profile and the foundation, wet sealed, and then there would be, however it's getting shipped to, delivered to you or the municipality, what have you. So that's the typical cost. If you were to be building out a network that's going to be within a fairly small geographical footprint, it's the same tower repeated 5 times over, we can work on, some type of scenario where maybe you don't have to have, 5 of the exact same drawings. We're willing to be flexible that way, because we understand that it's kind of a necessity and a necessary evil in a way for some networks and providers to get the municipal improvement, because that can be quite painful at some points. But we're always willing to have conversations around what would make it easiest for a WISP.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we got another question that just popped in. What is the average lifespan of the Trylon towers?
Yeah, so I'm going to have an answer, and it's not necessarily an exact answer, but the way the CSA code is designed is that we test the tower to a 1 in 50 year design wind pressure. So this assumes, based on historical data, based on location, and we would suggest, if you're going to get a sealed drawing, to get a site-specific wind report from Environment Canada, which will confirm what the design wind should be at your location. If we use the 1 in 50 years, this means that should the tower pass, which it would, or we would suggest a passing tower, your tower should not experience a stronger wind for 50 years, and thus, with proper maintenance schedule, so looking at the tower every 1 to 2 years, making sure there's no rust, replacing bolts where needed, making sure all the bolts are tight. There's an extensive outline of suggested maintenance for a tower. That 50 years, if not longer, the tower could last 50 years, if not longer. So there's no concreteness to it, because if the tower loading is twice what someone told us it would be, and that never gets double checked again at any point, obviously that greatly impacts the design, the expected span of life for the tower, should a strong wind come through, a 1 in 50 year wind. But I would say that would be the approach to take, is the way the code is designed, it should last for 50 years, provided the loading is accurate and proper maintenance schedule is maintained.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Steve. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. Feel free before we wrap up, if any last minute questions come to mind. So I'm just going to give everybody just a few seconds to pop on that chat window, because we are going to ask our question here for that $100 Amazon gift card. So I'll just give a few seconds here before I read it, and we take it as first correct answer that comes in the chat. So get those typing fingers ready, everyone. All right. So what is Trylon's newest tower line in their portfolio? All right, we got it. We got answers coming in. Looks like we have a winner. Sean Southern is our big winner. He is correct. It is the Titan Weld is the latest and greatest from Trylon. So Sean, Nicole on our team will be in touch with you very shortly to get that facilitated to you. And thank you, everybody. We had a lot of answers. We got some gangs coming in. But, well, thank you, everybody, for playing along there. So again, everybody, we'll wrap up here. Again, thank you all for attending. We do appreciate your time. We know that's usually the biggest resource the most delicate resource that we all have. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, anything to do with any of the Trylon content covered today, or if you would like some additional information, please do get in touch with your sales rep. Or anybody on the team, as Steve had mentioned. We all work collectively and together to make sure that we're responding quickly and taking care of our customers. So just another side note, NBSI Wave here, we will be hosting some more webinars coming up in the near future. So we will be making sure that we send out invites personally to look at these new products and solutions that are coming out hot here in 2019. So again, thank you all so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week, and looking forward to talking to you soon.